Hey guys, what's going on? Counterspell Hater here again with a new commander guide. So last time we went over what was this? It was Haitsugu, Devouring Chaos. So now the next commander we are going over for Kamigawa Neon Dynasty is Satoru Umazawa. For one generic, a blue and a black, he is a legendary creature, human ninja. Whenever you activate a ninjutsu ability, you look at the top 3 cards of your library and you put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. This ability triggers only once each turn. However, each creature card in your hand has ninjutsu for 2 generic, a blue and a black. 2/4. So what ninjutsu is that if you are attacking, you have an unblocked creature, you may pay a creature card's ninjutsu cost if it's in your hand, and return the unblocked creature to your hand and put the card with ninjutsu onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. So what we are going to have is like unblockable cards, and then like cards that give us value for playing our commander, or like cards, mostly cards to cheat up, but some not. So first up, we have like unblockable or very difficult to block. So Sazdek, Lord of Secrets, for 3 generic, double blue, double black. He is a legendary vampire, 5/5 with flying, and if he would deal combat damage to a player, instead you put that many plus symbols of counters on him, and then that player puts that many cards from the top of his or her library into his or her graveyard. So nice mill, can be cheated into play, flying. Vela, the Nightclad, for 4 generic, a blue and a black. She is a legendary human wizard with Intimidate, meaning that she can only be blocked by creatures that share a color with her, or artifact creatures and other creatures you control have Intimidate. So same thing there, 4/4. And whenever Vela, the Nightclad, or another creature you control leaves the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. So it makes our stuff even more difficult to block. And since our stuff is leaving the battlefield because we are returning creatures to our hand, Vela the Nightclad will be triggering a good amount. Phase Dolphin, for 2 generic and blue, is a creature elemental whale, 1/4, that when it attacks, target attacking creature can't be blocked this turn. So it itself can't be blocked, but can allow something you have to be unblockable. Tromokratis, very difficult to block, because for 5 generic and double blue is a legendary kraken that has hexproof unless it's attacking or blocking, 8/8, and can be blocked unless all creatures defending player controls blocks it. So either you block this or you don't. And reminder checks, if any creature that player controls doesn't block this creature, it can be blocked. Tidal Kraken, for 5 generic and triple blue, is a Kraken that is unblockable, and it's a 6/6. Invisible Stalker. This is probably more of the cards we're going to be playing and using to cheat out the other cards. Because for 1 generic and a blue, it's just a human rogue that is unblockable. It's a 1/1 and it has hexproof, so it's pretty difficult to kill and to block. Phantom Warrior, for 1 generic and double blue, is an illusion warrior that is unblockable. It's a 2/2. Uchima, Stalking Shadow, for 1 generic, a blue and a black. Partner with Khazar, Ruthless Stalker, but that doesn't matter because we are not running green, and Khazar is green. Ukima can't be blocked, and when Ukima leaves the battlefield, it deals X damage to target player, and you gain X life or X is its power. 2/2. Deep Sea Kraken. For 7 generic and Trio Blue, it is an unblockable 6/6 Kraken with suspend 9 for 2 generic and a blue. So for 2 generic and a blue, you can exile this from your hand with 9 time counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, you remove a time counter from it, and when the last one is removed, you may cast this card without paying its mana cost. And whenever an opponent plays a spell, if Deep Sea Kraken is suspended, remove the time counter from it. Neroc Invisimancer for 1 generic and double blue. It is a human, I guess, or she is a human wizard who is unblockable 2/1. And when Neroc Invisimancer enters the battlefield, target creature is unblockable this turn. So can make someone you have unblockable. Shieldred Whispering One for 5 generic and double black. She is a legendary predator, 6/6 Swamp Walk. This creature can be blocked as long as defending player controls a swamp. And at the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, that player sacrifices a creature. So not only is this kind of difficult to block for people who are for players at the table who are playing black, but this also whittles down their board state and builds up yours, like gets stuff back from your graveyard that you may have discarded due to like returning like creatures to your hand. And also it makes it even more difficult for your opponents to block because they have to sacrifice. Gas Lord of Fuge, quintuple hybrid blue black. So a hybrid mana you can play with either type of mana, so blue or black. So quintuple blue or quintuple black, or actually any combination of those, really. Spirit Avatar, it is unblockable 4/4, and when it deals combat damage to a player, that player reveals his or her hand, and then you choose a card from it, and that player removes that card from the game or exile. Etrata the Silencer for 2 generic, a blue and a black. She is a legendary vampire assassin that can be blocked 3/5, and when she deals combat damage to a player, you exile a target creature that player controls and put a hit counter on that card. That player loses the game if they own 3 or more cards exiled with hit counters on them. Etrata's owner shuffles Etrata into their library. So pretty mean card. Blighted Ancient, very deadly because for 1 generic and a blue, it is a human rogue with infect, meaning that it deals damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters and to players in the form of poison counters. And if a player has 10 or more poison counters at any time whatsoever, then that player loses the game. And Blighted Ancient is also unblockable, and it's a 1/1. Slitherblade for 1 blue is a Naga rogue that cannot be blocked, 1/2. Rexiel, the Risen Deep for 3 generic, double blue, and a singular black. It is a legendary Kraken with Island Walk, Swamp Walk. I know you can't see that well. So that means it can't be blocked as long as defending player controls an island or a swamp. And it's a 5/8. And when it deals combat damage to a player, you may cast target instant or sorcery card from that player's graveyard without paying its mana cost. And if that card would be put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. Triton Shorestalker for 1 blue is a Merfolk rogue that cannot be blocked, and it is a 1/1. Ogre Slumlord for 3 generic and double black is a Ogre rogue 3/3, and whenever another non-token creature dies, you may create a 1/1 black rat creature token and rats control of death touch, so they have a form of evasion, which makes them difficult to block for your opponents because they have to decide whether or not to block them and lose a creature potentially. And now we get kind of into value. I forgot to put the other side of all ruined God of the Cosmos, excuse me. For 3 generic and double blue, he is a legendary god. All ruined gets +1/+1 for each card in your hand, and each card you own in exile that is foretold. And at the beginning of your end step, you choose a card type and then reveal the top 2 cards of your library. Put all cards of the chosen type into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library. And then the other side is just for 1 generic and blue. It is a raven flying. It's like a 2/2. And when it deals combat damage, you scry 1 and then you return the raven to your hand. Oh, and our all ruined is a 1/1, by the way. Mind Flayer. For 3 generic and double blue, it is a horror 3/3 dominate monster. Whenever it enters the battlefield, gain control of target creature for as long as you control Mind Flayer. So if you have an unblocked creature while you are attacking, you can ninjutsu this out for 4 instead of like paying its mana cost for 5. Torgar Famine Incarnate. For 6 generic and double black, it is a legendary avatar 7/6 that has an additional cost to cast it. You must sacrifice any number of creatures, and then this spell costs 2 generic less to cast for each creature sacrificed this way. And when Torgar Famine Incarnate enters the battlefield, as 1 target player's life total becomes half their starting life total, rounded down. But if you ninjutsu Torgar out, you do not have to pay this sacrifice cost. And you can actually still get it for pretty cheap. But if you just sacrifice 3 creatures, then you can get this for double black. Still, though, not too bad to have this be attacking your opponent right away instead of having to wait. Because then you ninjutsu this in, your opponent's life total most likely gets halved because they're going to be above 20. And then you've got 7/6 unblocked attacking them on top of that. So that would look like, along with everything else, that would already put your opponent down to 13. Quicksilver Gargantuan. For 5 generic and double blue, is a creature shapeshifter that you may have enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it's still a 7/7, and it's a 7/7 by default. So then you need to just do this in for 4, and you can pick out like a pretty like big bad creature that your opponent may have, like something pretty strong with double strike, just to make sure it doesn't have more power than this. So like maybe even a Crater Hoof Behemoth to power all of your stuff up. Still, this can be a pretty nuts card to ninjutsu in for just like 4, because then you get to have like a copy of a creature on your battlefield, and it's a 7/7, so pretty nice. Blightsteel Colossus. This can just end the game out of nowhere, because it's an artifact creature golem, trample infect. And by the way, since it's an activated ability, most likely your opponents aren't going to be able to counter this. Blightsteel Colossus is also indestructible. And if we put into a graveyard from anywhere, reveal Blightsteel Colossus and shuffle it into its owner's library instead, 11/11. So you can just ninjutsu this thing in, and then that's game over for your opponents. If you have the 4 mana you need, so the 2 generic and blue and black, and you're attacking your opponent, and you have an unblocked creature, you can ninjutsu this in, and then it'll deal 11 infect damage to your opponent, unblocked, and your opponent will just lose. Like, that is the end. Meteor Golem. For 7 generic, is an artifact creature golem that when it enters the battlefield, it destroys target non-land permanent and opponent controls. It's 3/3, so cheat in like a destroy spell. Reconnaissance mission. This is something you can't quite cheat in, but still pretty good because for 2 generic and double blue, it is enchantment that states whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. And cycling of 2 generic, meaning you can discard this card to draw a card for 2 generic. Oh no, Queen of the Fae for 3 generic and triple hybrid blue-black. She is a legendary fairy wizard with flying 5/5, and for X and hybrid blue-black, you can choose a color and target opponent exiles the top X cards of their library. For each card of the chosen color exiled this way, create a 1/1 blue and black fairy rogue creature token with flying. So this makes creatures that can be probably very difficult to block because they're in the air, and it can make a lot of them. Not to mention this doesn't tap, so this is an activated ability that you can use right away. And since you'll be ninjutsuing this out most likely for 4 instead of paying the mana cost of 6 and it not be attacking, that'll be an unblocked 5 damage first of all. Second of all, you then have more mana left over to use her ability. So all in all, pretty nice. Sakashima of 1,000 Faces. For 3 generic and blue, he is a legendary human rogue, 3/1, that you may have enter the battlefield as a copy of another creature you control, except it has Sakashima of 1,000 Faces other abilities, meaning the legendary rule doesn't apply to partners you control. Partner you can have 2 commanders if both have partner. But that doesn't matter. What matters is the whole legendary rule thing, meaning you could have this in like another shield druid, or you could have like another copy of your commander if you want, but that's not really necessary. Still though, this being cheated in as a copy of anything and still being attacking is pretty wicked on its own, even though it just costs 4. The reason it's better is obviously because like you could have like, oh, you have Blightsteel clauses, but it's blocked by like a 12/12, but then you have an unblocked 1/1, and then but you have the mana need to ninjutsu in Sakashima, so then boom, ninjutsu in Sakashima 1,000 Faces, have a copy Blightsteel Colossus, and boom, once again your opponent is dead due to infect. Virtus, the Veiled, for 2 generic and a black, is a legendary creature, Azra Assassin, Death Touch, 1/1, and when it deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half their life rounded up. So you have an unblocked creature, boom, you flash this in, suddenly your opponent has lost a lot more life than what they would have expected. Agent of Treachery, for 5 generic and double blue, is a sick, disgusting human rogue, 2/3, that was used in so many broken ways by Winota, if you were around for that in MTG Arena. And when it enters the battlefield, gain control of target permanents, and at the beginning of your end step, if you control 3 or more permanents you don't own, draw 3 cards. So if you control like 3 of your opponent's lands, then you would draw 3 cards. Anyways, pretty disgusting card to use, but it's in here because it's busted. Because for 6 generic, Ward of Bones, it's an artifact saying that each opponent who controls more creatures than you can't play creature cards. So this shuts down like this can really shut down your opponent in general. Same is true for artifacts, enchantments, and lands. Since this deck is big on creatures and not on artifacts and lands, this means that your opponent is going to be really shut down, especially if they're playing white. Because white normally has a lot of creatures and enchantments and other stuff and artifacts and has ways to get lands. Anyways, moving on. Silent Blade Oni. This can ninjutsu on its own. The regular mana cost is for 3 generic, double blue, double black. The ninjutsu cost is for 4 generic, blue and a black. Or if you have a commander out, you can ninjutsu it out for 2 generic, a blue and a black. 6/5. When it deals combat damage to a player, look at that player's hand, you may cast a non-land card in it without paying that card's mana cost. So boom, you just ninjutsu this in all of a sudden, and suddenly you probably have like what might as well be the best thing in your opponent's hand currently. So amazing. Now one thing I did kind of pop up in my mind was, would training grounds affect the ninjutsu cost? Because ninjutsu is an activated ability, but I believe training ground only affects the abilities of cards on your battlefield. Something to look into. Ghoul Caller Gisa. For 3 generic and Dole Black, she is a legendary human wizard, 3/4, and then for a black, you can tap her and sacrifice another creature. Create X 2/2 black summon creature tokens, where X sacrifice the creature's power. So if you have like a big creature that's just laying around doing nothing, or you just have like a bunch of creatures, you can like sacrifice that to like create a bunch of 2/2s. So then you have more creatures to attack with, which means most likely your opponent isn't able to block all of your creatures, allowing you to ninjutsu in more cards, more creature cards. Mechanics the Unhallowed. Now, there are a few humans in here, but this is still a good card to have, because for 3 generic control black, first of all, it's a legendary zombie cleric with Intimidate, so it's pretty hard to block because it's mono black. So this can only be blocked by either A, black creatures your opponents control, or artifact creatures they may have. And whenever a human deals damage to you, destroy it. So this can automatically kind of shut down human tribal decks that you may be going up against. In the case, it's also a 5/5, and other non-human creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Undying. So the non-human creatures you do have on your battlefield have get +1/+1 and have Undying, meaning when they die, if they had no +1/+1 counters on them, then they are returned to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it. That's Undying for you. I'll read the official definition, that way you don't get confused. Because okay, so whenever a creature with Undying dies, if it had no +1/+1 counters on it, returns to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it. So this can be bad if you have gained control of a creature your opponent owns, but still can be also pretty nice to keep your stuff alive. Great Merchant of Asphodel. For 3 generic and Dole Black, it is a zombie 2/4 that when it enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life, versus your devotion black, and you gain life equal to the life lost this way. So since we have a lot of like cards with like triple or double black in their mana cost, this is gonna like drain someone, because each black mana symbol in the mana cost of permanent you control counts towards your devotion black. So say, sir, for example, I had Great Merchant of Asphodel, Machias, and Ghoul Caller Gisa, and I just played Great Merchant. So my devotion would then at that moment be 7. Yes, 7. Magus of the Coffers for mana ramp. Because for 4 generic and a black is a human wizard 4/4 that can tap for 2 generic to add a black to your mana pool for each swamp you control. So pretty nice mana ramp. Allows you to ninjutsu probably more often. Geth, Lord of the Vault, for 4 generic and all black, is a legendary zombie with Intimidate 5/5. And for X and a black, you can put target artifact or creature card with converted mana cost X from an opponent's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control tapped. Then that player puts the top X cards of their library into their graveyard. So the thing is nice about this is that you can ninjutsu it in. It's attacking. It's a 5/5, so it deals 5 damage to your opponent. You've spent less mana to cast it, and you're able to therefore spend more mana into its ability and in putting artifacts and creatures from your opponent's graveyard onto the battlefield tapped under your control. Lord of the Void. Oh boy. Because for 4 generic and Troll Black, you might want to strap in. It's the demon flying 7/7, and when it deals combat damage to a player, exile the top 7 cards of that player's library. Then put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield under your control. So you ninjutsu this in for 4. Your opponent's in a lot of trouble. First of all, 7 damage. Ouch. Second of all, exile the top 7 cards of that player's library and put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield under your control. Bigger ouch. Consuming Aberration for 3 generic, a blue and a black. It's a horror whose power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards in your opponent's graveyards. And whenever you cast a spell, each opponent reveals cards to the top of his or her library until he or she reveals a land card, and put those cards into his or her hand and into his or her graveyard. Sorry. So pretty nice to cheat in, because then you're able to cast more spells because you spent less mana on it and casting it. Reaver Demon for 4 generic and quadruple black is a 6/6 demon with flying, and when it comes into play or enters the battlefield, if you played it from your hand, which ninjutsu does count from being from your hand, then you would destroy all non-artifact, non-black creatures. They can't be regenerated. So you may destroy some of your creatures in the process, but most likely not, because most of the creatures in this deck have black in them. So that means this is most likely going to be a one-sided board wipe, favoring you. So pretty nice, because can actually end up being a pretty cheap board wipe that you need. Runescar Demon for 5 generic and double black. It is a 6/6 flying demon that when it enters the battlefield, it allows you to search your library for a card, put it into your hand that shows your library. So pretty cheap search spell. Necropolis Regent for 3 generic and triple black. It is a vampire with flying. It's 6/5, and it saves whenever creature you control deals combat damage to a player with that many possible counters on it. So it can make your creatures silently very big. So you cheat this and boom, flying 6/5. Then it deals combat damage to your opponent, and then it gets like 6 +1/+1 counters on it, along with any other creatures that you control that are attacking that may be unblocked, getting those +1/+1 counters. Hold on. Overseer of the Damned for 5 generic and double black. It is a 5/5 flying demon that when it enters the battlefield, you may destroy target creature. So nice kill spell for pretty cheap if you are able to ninjutsu it in. And whenever a non-token creature on opponent controls dies, create tapped 2/2 black summon creature token. So more creatures for your army, more creatures most likely going unblocked. Peregrine Drake for 4 generic and a blue. It is a Drake with flying. It's a 2/3, and when it enters the battlefield, untap up to 5 lands. So I believe, if I'm correct, you ninjutsu a creature that has already ninjutsu'd itself in. That's a question I had, and if you can, then that's going to be great, because then that's an infinite combo. Because that's right there is an unblocked creature, because you ninjutsu a creature in by returning a creature you control that is attacking and is unblocked to your hand, and you put the creature with ninjutsu onto the battlefield, right? So Peregrine Drake would be unblocked. It would enter the battlefield and untap up to 5 lands. So then Palinchron for 5 generic and double blue, excuse me. It's an illusion with flying for 5, and when it enters the battlefield, untap up to 7 lands, and then for 2 generic and double blue, it can return itself to its owner's hand. So if you can do that, then you could do an infinite cycle of Peregrine Drake and Palinchron both returning each other to your hand, if I'm correct. And if ninjutsu allows you to, then that means you could essentially have infinite mana on your combat phase, meaning you can ninjutsu in like as many creatures as you wanted to, or pump it into something like Ona, or like Geth. So if that works like that, please let me know, because that's an infinite combo right there. Newscraft Mob for 4 generic and double black. It is a zombie 0/0 that enters battlefield with 5 +1/+ counters on it. And whenever a player casts a spell, remove a +1/+ counter from Newscraft Mob. If you do, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. So if you are able to return this to your hand, thanks to ninjutsu, then this could lead you to a zombie army if you're able to return it by having it pay towards like a creature's ninjutsu cost. Herald of Leeshrock for 6 generic and a black is a flying avatar 2/4 that cumulative upkeep. Gain control of a land you control. You don't control, excuse me. So cumulative upkeep is a triggered ability that at the beginning of your upkeep, you put an age counter or time counter, whichever one, onto, say, Herald of Leeshrock in this instance, for example, and then you have to pay the cost that is stated. So in this case, gain control of a land you don't control for each age counter on that permanent with cumulative upkeep. And Herald of Leeshrock gets plus, otherwise you sacrifice the permanent. Herald of Leeshrock gets +1/+1 for each land you control but don't own. And when he leaves play, each player gains control of each land he or she owns that you control. It's a nice way to rank. Ink Eyes, Servant of Oni, for 4 generic and double black, is a legendary rat ninja with an ninjutsu cost of 3 generic and double black. And whenever Ink Eyes, Servant of Oni, deals combat damage to a player, you may put target creature card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control, and then apply 4, and then for 1 generic and a black, you can regenerate her. So let's see. Yeah, it seems so, because to ninjutsu in, return an unblocked attacker you control to your hand, and then put this card onto the battlefield from your hand tapped and attacking, meaning that's yes, in this deck, thanks to Palangron and Peregrine Drake, you have an infinite mana combo for combat only. And if you're able to have, and if you have something that like prevents mana being emptied out from your mana pool, then that's even better. Fiend of the Shadows for 3 generic and double black is a creature vampire wizard. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles a card from their hand, and you may play that card for as long as it remains exiled, and then you can sacrifice a human to regenerate Fiend of Shadows, which means regeneration means that you remove the creature from combat, and then you prevent all damage that will be dealt to it and heal it up the next time it would be destroyed, of course. Treachery with Slime. Mephidros Vampire, a final creature that can be cheated in for 4 generic double black, is a vampire with flying 3/4, and each creature you control is a vampire in addition to its other creature types, and has, whenever this creature deals damage to a creature, put a +1/+ counter on this creature. So it makes your block creatures even stronger, so that they can get through. And Isolated Watchtower, land, it can tap to add a color. For 2 generic, it can tap to let you scry one, meaning you look at the top card of your library, and you can decide whether that card goes on top or goes on the bottom of your library. And then you may reveal the top card of your library. If a basic land card is revealed this way, put it onto the battlefield tapped. Activate this ability only if the opponent controls at least 2 more lands than you, which blue-black, not being able to ramp really much in the sense of lands, will probably most likely be able to activate this ability. Myriad Landscape. Every battlefield taps, it can tap for a colors or for 2 generic. It can be tapped to be sacrificed and allow you to search your library for up to 2 basic land cards that each share a basic land type and put them onto the battlefield tap, then shuffle your library. And then you have your 24 basic islands, and then your 24 basic swamps, and the end of this commander guide of Satoru Umazawa from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. Please keep the view count going up. I like to see that. I like to keep Charterfang going up. I love that you guys have been taking time every day to view the Will Health and other videos. Talk Rules, the most popular apparently right now by view count, with 39 views within 2 weeks. I thank you all. We're at 9 subscribers, guys, just 1 away. And then we can do a 10 sub special of some sorts. And I thank you all for supporting me. Don't forget to hit notification bell. That way you don't miss another one of these videos. Go check out my other videos. Share this with others you may know of. And I will see you next time. Goodbye.